Welcome back to another episode of the Downsizing Roadmap podcast with your hosts, Jodi Roscoe and Heather Fisher. We're talking about all things downsizing, from our own experiences with clients to guest experts. Let's make downsizing easier, one conversation at a time.
Hi, welcome to the Downsizing Roadmap podcast. This is a great topic.
Yeah, we hear it all the time.
Yeah.
Kids don't want my stuff.
Yeah. Now, what do I do?
Yeah.
I don't think we hear the now what do I do.
No, we just hear that the kids don't want my stuff. And it often feels like frustration or maybe sadness. You know, I think there's a little bit of hurt around it.
Yeah. Sometimes followed with, well, I don't care. They're getting it anyway.
Yeah. Well, they're just going to have to deal with it all when I die. Yeah, we hear those things too.
Yes. It can be an emotionally charged category or topic to talk about. We'll joke because we're probably in this category a little bit ourselves, as all parents are, when you hope your kids care more about what your life was like than they probably do. But
well, I think they do care about what your life was like. I think they don't see it through the stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a generational kind of change about how that is. And so I think that is how people hear it, is like, I don't want your stuff, therefore I don't care about you.
Yeah.
And that is not actually what they're saying at all.
Yeah.
So I think we can delve into that a little bit more today. So I'm Jodi Roscoe.
I'm Heather Fisher.
And I think, people get like kind of they hear the no thanks, no mom, thanks, or no dad. And they're like, oh, what? And they feel like, oh, but I love that thing. And like, why don't you, want it too? And it's not true. It's not rejection of you. And so I think that's the biggest thing to remember, is that it's more of, they're trying to hold their boundaries about their own space, which probably already has too much stuff as well. And they may not understand the importance of the thing that you're trying to give them, because stuff is just stuff without a story, right? And so that story may not resonate with them the way that it resonates with you. Yeah. And so you may have something that really reminded you of your parents' house or your grandma's house, or, something that you have that reminded you of that. But maybe you didn't really make that a centerpiece in your house. So then your kids don't have any memory around that thing. And so for them, you have a memory around it that brings you closer to somebody, but for them, there is no memories around that. That's why we always say, if you're keeping stuff, in the basement or in a storage space or, whatever, there's no memories that are being made around that. So your future, the kids aren't going to want any of that stuff because they don't have any connection to it.
Yeah, we talk often that the things that your kids will want, and there will be a few things.
Yeah.
I mean,
when people say kids don't want my stuff, we're always like, that's not true. They just might not want the things you think they should want.
Yeah, and I think we talk so much about the stories around things. What a fantastic opportunity to hear those stories from your kids as to why, what memory they're holding around some of the random things that they feel attachment to. Maybe it's a candy dish that came out every holiday, and they snuck some extra candy out of the dish, or maybe it's something that was out every year at birthdays. It could be anything that resonates with their childhood, their growing up with you, and their story.
Well, and the thing could be like, okay, so I have an advent calendar, and I did a whole thing with the kids, like every year with the advent calendar, and each day it had something, fun to do or something in it. Don't start things you don't want to keep going, guys. I'm going to just, say that. But that, first of all, there's only one of those. And so I have two kids. So only one of them would be able to have that advent calendar. And secondly, I'm not sure it's the calendar itself at all. Like if they both went and got their own advent calendars that, looked different, but kept that tradition of, they loved that. That's the part they loved about it. It's not the actual physical calendar, right?
Yeah.
And so, think about if they're taking those traditions or whatever that is, even if they're not taking the stuff, that's the important part anyways. That's the part you did it for. The part you care about is the memories that they had around it.
Yeah, we just went through exactly that. I've got 3 kids, and only my oldest has has children of his own, so grandkids. And he called me a year or 2 ago on before Christmas. I don't have the talent that you have to put all the activities around the Advent calendar, but we had like a wooden countdown to Christmas. It had little drawers for the 25 days and little ornaments that went on the little wooden thing that it came with. You could hang the ornaments each day as you counted down. And my youngest loves it the most. But my son, my oldest, he called me and said, "Hey, Mom, do you still have that, countdown calendar?" He thought his kids would really love it. And I immediately was like, "Yeah, we have that. I bet they'd love it too." And my youngest fought back and said, "No, I might be 20, but I still, count down this every year. You can't give that away." And, in thinking about that, but just like you said, I was able to go and find the same thing. And it was that tradition that my son wanted to start with his kids that we had done with him when he was little. And it didn't matter that the one I had sent to their house, was different. It wasn't the same. It was that tradition that they all love.
And how awesome is that? I mean, because that is so cool that they want to carry on the tradition. That is really the most important thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's not the stuff that today's younger generations, they want mobility. They don't want to be bogged down by stuff. They want flexibility. Like their mindset around all of that stuff is different. And they don't necessarily want giant houses that they fill with things. Like they want more financial flexibility. They value experiences over belongings. So they would rather spend time and have memories than have things. And so they're more discerning about the things that they bring in. And so again, it's not a personal affront.
Yeah.
Or it's no reflection on that, on you. It's just their different mindset around culturally, it's a different mindset.
Society has changed so much where the ease of getting household items is so different than, a generation or 2 ago when things weren't delivered to the front door and, the amount of income in a household or the number of people working in the household was smaller, and you had a need and an appreciation for just the day-to-day useful items.
Yeah.
As a young person starting out, you were starting, maybe your household in a new marriage and kids much younger, and you needed those things for the usefulness, not for the story. And so I think a lot more got passed down because it wasn't so easy for people to just go to IKEA or Target or whatever.
Or Amazon it to your house.
Or Amazon delivery
Wayfair.
to your house. Yes. At such a lower cost.
Right.
So it was so different. And so we need to look at that and consider that the things our kids want now are truly those meaningful items, and don't count on them to want, your Tupperware, your dishes, your dressers, because they have it themselves. We're living longer, so the age things are getting passed down is different. And we've just all, raised really independent kids. We talked about that spirit of independence here in America. They have their household full of items before we're ever ready to pass that down.
Yeah. Because that time frame is different, right? And they're. The other thing is houses are smaller. They're starting to shrink, right? We went from small houses that we got, in the 1940s, everybody came back from the war. We had tiny little houses, right?
Yeah.
Tons and tons of tiny little houses. And then they just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. In the 80s, they got really big. In the 90s, 2000s, they got really, really big. And then they've actually started to go down. They're 400 square feet on average smaller than they were than the builds of the 2000s. And so they have less room. And affordability is a thing. I mean, we've had a lot of inflation, which means that we had, higher home prices. And so that means kids are buying homes later in their life, and they are buying smaller properties because it's just too expensive. And so they're trying not to overwhelm their space with stuff. And so formal dining, that was like a whole thing. So it's not that they don't like China, which is where we are right now. It's that they don't have a space for it, and they don't really have a use for it. We used to do a lot more formal entertaining, and culturally that has declined. Dining rooms are kind of going away. They're becoming offices in a lot of newer floor plans. And so there's just less of that happening, of that formal kind of dining the way that grandma did
entertaining is not as formal as it once was.
Right.
It's when you have people over, it's more of that just come be part of our family routine for the evening versus a formal setting.
Yeah. So they're not saying no because they don't like the thing or you or any of those things. They're trying to just save their space a little bit, not be overwhelmed by inherited stuff, because they already have a lot of their own stuff, and they probably have more than they need of their own stuff, to be honest. So and let's talk about what you really are actually trying to pass on, because it isn't the thing.
Yeah.
It is the story, right? It's the story. It's things represent things to you. They'll start to represent things to you.
Yeah, love and legacy and gratitude. Memories, your hard work, all of those things are wrapped up. And so if you get a casual, no, I don't really like that. If we're tying those emotions to each particular item, it does feel like a little ping.
Like that was my life's work, or that was my, I loved this because of this person who gave it to me. And, whatever it is, then the meanings can be passed on in a different way if that's what needs to happen. But it isn't, the love isn't in the stuff, and the legacy isn't necessarily in the stuff. So when we talk about you paring down your own things, we do talk about legacy and what you want that to be. And if you have something that is so maybe you love cooking, and so you have things that the kids love to make, or to eat or whatever, then giving them, a book of your recipes or something along those lines is a legacy that they probably want. They probably want that. Which does not mean they want your, 62 book collection of cookbooks, right?
Yeah.
They want the things that they remember that you made.
Yeah.
It's all much more personal now.
And there's no one better to curate that than you yourself, and make it easy for them to have that collection in that small piece of, this is what this represented to me, this is what I hope it means to you, and here's why, and here's this one or two things, versus, well, I hope you deal with my house and take all of it. Those are very different.
Yeah. And if there's things that are really important to you, and your kids are saying they don't want them now, write the story of them. Just journal that thing. If it's something that you still love and you're still using, you can still keep it and keep that story with it. And someday the kids may or may not change their mind around it, but they will love to read the story and hear the story about it and know that.
Yeah.
So,
especially items that they may not end up keeping later, but just to have that story, to even know, what it means to the family or whatever, is a gift you can give as they're going through things, to know the difference. Did you buy this at an estate sale last week because it just looked interesting, or was this belonging to your great-great-grandmother, and, here's why?
Right. And I know I've told this story before, but my grandma loved crystal and had all this crystal. And when my mom and my grandma passed away at the same time, like I didn't know any of the stories about it. And I know some of it was my great grandma's on both sides, and some of it was my grandma's, and some of it she got for like her 50th wedding anniversary and all the things, you know. And when they passed away together, then that story, all of those stories were gone. I mean, we did not remember what was what. They could have told you. My mom could have told you, but I couldn't, you know, and so her brothers weren't sure either. And so now it's just crystal. And so, if there's something super important, make a list of it, you know, write the story of it so that they know. That doesn't mean they're going to keep it either later. I don't know, but like they might really love to hear that story, and the story is what keeps the memory.
Yeah. Yeah, or be just a comfort in that moment if it's being gone through because you're gone, and they can or just have that.
Be like, this is so cool, I want it now. It was great Grandma Sue's, you know, like whatever. Like so
yeah, so we usually try by just asking our kids, you know, do you want this?
Yeah.
And that's not really a winning question.
Yeah, they're going to be like, no.
No, you know, absolutely not. So there's some replacement questions that might get you to a better understanding of what to keep for them, or what they might want to take now, or what is fine to just give away if nobody's using it. So a good question to ask, is there anything here that holds meaning for you? This is that, you know, ask family before you get started on a big overhaul of getting ready for a downsizing move or just streamlining your house. Just asking, before I get started, I'm going to be giving away a lot of things. Is there anything here that holds a lot of meaning to you? They might give you some insight there. Is there anything that connects you to our family story? I know the things I remember from my grandparents' house are different from the things my mom remembers from my grandparents' house. So, you know, there's differences because of that memory and that experience with another family member or in another environment. Everybody's story is different, so that might be a different answer than you're expecting. And then framing it with, you know, no pressure. Honestly, I'm letting go of some things and wanted to offer choices before I do. So you're not just saying, well, I need you to take all of this. Mm-hmm. That's not going to go so well.
And as I'm thinking about this with my daughter, I think, or my son, either one of them, if I just asked that question, you know, at brunch someday, they would be like, they would not be able to think of anything. But if I'm getting rid of things and I took a quick picture of like laid out, like I'm getting rid of this stuff.
Yeah.
Then they might be like, wait, hold on. Like, because they don't think of that like in the moment sometimes. Like they might not think if it's, you know, June and you're getting rid of your Christmas stuff, you know, they're not gonna be like, oh yeah, I want the Advent calendar. Like they won't think about it like that. But then at Christmas, they're like, where's the Advent calendar? And they're like, what do you mean you got rid of the Advent calendar? You know, so I would just maybe just a quick snap picture. Hey, just this stuff, you don't have to, I'm not telling you need to keep any of it. I'm just making sure before I let it go.
Yeah, and then I think I totally agree with that. And then back to just usefulness, I do think there's a time to ask, is there anything here that would be helpful to your life? Mm-hmm. I know, you know, my father-in-law has much more tools at his house than my husband does. And so maybe there's a time when some, not all, you know, would go to him and be helpful to us if my father-in-law is not helping with those things or things like that. But just don't make the assumption that because something was useful to you that your kids are going to have the same need, or the same want, or the same hobby or interest in doing it. But you can ask that question because it might be helpful to someone starting out or that doesn't have anything to pass that on.
And sometimes it does relate to what's happening in their life and their lifetime, right? Like, you know, my kids are in college right now. Like, they're not going to need stuff now. Yeah. 5 years from now, they're going to be like, hey, why did you get rid of that, you know, KitchenAid mixer. I want it now. Well, if that's what needs to happen in your life right now, then that's what needs to happen, and they can get a new one, at some point. So I think you have to be careful with, like, I'm going to keep this all for them for the someday. If they're still in college and they're saying, I really want that, maybe you store it for a couple years. Not tons of stuff, but, maybe you do. But there's times, I think, in life when you can, they can accept things or not accept things. Stephen wouldn't have wanted the Advent calendar before his kids were born, probably.
Exactly. And I think that that's so true. And to give yourself permission that at the time you're asking the questions, those answers are the best answers. And to not say, to just save it thinking, well, maybe I'll get a different answer later. We see clients oftentimes that we're starting to talk to them about what's the plan for all your stuff as you get ready for this move, and they'll just kind of give an answer like, well, I mean, I've got 5 grandkids and 2 of them are in college and they'll probably have an apartment soon, and it's just such a broad sweep of I hope I can kick this can down the road and someone will want it. And I think there's so many other solutions where you could potentially help them buy a dining room table, and that replacement cost is probably less than you moving it, storing it, having the mental weight of something where you can just look down the road and say, if they need help getting their first home set up, maybe I could gift them a new table or something like that, and not just keep it all in the hopes.
Right. So some stuff that they might want, but they don't know they want, like I was talking about earlier, could be like your identity pieces, military stuff. Maybe if you have a hobby that you do all the time, quilting, needlepoint, whatever that looks like, maybe some of that artwork, Mark's dad painted after he retired, which was crazy. He was an engineer, and so who knew he had a whole right brain side that he could paint, but he painted after, and there was a lot of paintings, and so I think that you get hung up sometimes on needing to keep it all, but just like photos, I think keep the ones that really resonate with you. But kids may want something that if you have a hobby that you do, that's something that they may want. They may want stuff that recipes, like I said, or things that really remind them of people who have already passed. Pretend maybe their grandparents or something along those lines. And they may want their own childhood things, but they're not going to want a lot of them. Maybe a book that you read to them all the time, a piece of furniture that they grew up with.
Yeah, that's been fun for me as my kids are, my oldest 2 are in their early 30s, and when they've brought up different things, in those conversations, remember that one book with the porcupine, and they'll talk about it, and like in that instance, like we all loved this one book, and I'm like, I think I might have it. I'm not sure if I have it, but the moment of us all talking about it and reminiscing didn't matter that we had the physical book or not, and we all talked about it and laughed. And then, just yesterday I had the kids and grandkids over, and my son said, Mom, remember that game we used to have? And he described it, and he's like, I think, he said, I just was thinking about that, and he thought his son was getting to the age where he would like it. And I'm like, yes, I do. It's in the cabinet. And I went and got it, and we all played it last night and taught it to my grandson. And, both ways were just as fun because it was our family, carrying on a tradition and talking about it. Yeah. And the item was just part of the story. And so don't get so hung up that every item has to be there for the memories that they hold to live on. Yeah.
So they might want just a piece of something that you have. Like, my grandma had a huge teacups set, and they just took one. Like they loved having tea with her. They just took one.
Yeah.
Instead of taking the 60 or whatever there was there, because that seemed overwhelming, and that's okay. And they remember having tea with her, and they have the teacup, and it's okay. So don't be afraid to break up some things like that. If somebody has a collection of things, they can take one thing of the collection, and that's okay too.
I think that's an especially good way to give your family permission to split something up, so that more people can hold on to a piece of a legacy from somebody, like the teacups. When you're talking about, well, there's only one advent calendar, you know, something like that, that's a collection. I know you've talked before about making copies of a book with your grandma's recipes in it. Those are ways where you can give one item to more people and share that legacy without anyone being burdened with, here's a whole kitchen worth of stuff because grandma loved to cook.
Yeah.
It's really changing it to a legacy item.
Yeah. Yes. So when you realize, like, they absolutely don't want it, right? Because some of it's like, no, I just don't want that. Then how do you release it without losing the legacy?
I think we always try to find places where someone is going to love something and use it and get the rest of the life out of an item. And so you can be just as comfortable knowing that that story lives on with someone you might not know. I think we talked about this in the Swedish death cleaning book that we reviewed. That the author and her friend, the friend had bought a desk or a table that they talked about. I wonder what stories happened before I owned it. And I think the reverse is true, that when you're donating things, when that's hard, you can just put a little imagination to what that's going to do for someone else's life and how that can live on.
Or even you can put a note with it if you want to, and tell the next person the story of what it is when you donate it. And I think also donating things intentionally, like, maybe there's a great charity that helps a specific group of people that you feel like would feel better to donate something to than not. Maybe that's a way to do that. Or maybe you record the stories that you have. When I'm talking about those donates, I'm talking about maybe it's veterans group or church groups or whatever resonates, with you, shelters, art programs. There's some great places if you have hobbies that you used to do, teachers, books, all kinds of like things.
Train clubs, there's usually a group that has, even if it's a niche hobby, there's usually a group of other people that would really appreciate some, equipment or things to further that hobby. You can enjoy the thought of someone getting into that hobby because you've given, your supplies, and someone else can enjoy that and learn something new. Yeah.
So, and you can preserve those stories. You can do that through, writing the stories down. You can make videos of the stories. You can photograph it. You can do some things, voice record stories, do something along those lines so that those stories aren't lost, but you don't have to keep the things, with it.
Yeah.
The actual physical things. So, and if there are one or two things that really, really matter, not 30 things, not 100 things, then the kids need to know why, and they need to know that story, and they need you to like intentionally like sit them down and be like, hey, this is really, really important to me because, and then the entire story of why it is, and it needs to be a good story. So I'll say that.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not because you went and bought it at a garage sale one day and whatever. Unless that was the story because that's where you met your husband. I mean, it could be anything, but whatever.
Well, and I think the lesson to be learned from that is that if you've incorporated that story and that thing into your household through all of the time when they were living there and growing up there, they'll know how important
Yeah.
something is to you.
Yeah.
And that will be the things that they can at least respect your love of it, and whether they keep it for all of time or not, they're holding that story too.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you want something that stays in the family, then, you can leave it to somebody. Just give them not a lot of things, though.
Yeah. And the reason why.
And the reason why. And so, let them choose. Let them choose the things that they love and the things that mean things to them. Again, they won't be necessarily the things that you think they are, but it's not that they want nothing. It's just that they may not want the things that you think that they should want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, in wrapping up, your life is bigger than your belongings. And I think
I love that.
this becomes clearer and clearer to us as we learn and talk about this topic over and over, that when you can find that realization that free, lightweight life you can live when you have the memories and the stories and the relationships, and not just a burden of things, everything just feels easier and lighter, and a great place to be.
Yeah, because what if your legacy was your stories and not your stuff, and what your gift to your kids is not having to deal with the stuff? Because I'm going to just say, as the adult kid, I did need to do that, and that was a lot, and it was very overwhelming, and it would have been awesome if that had been the gift to me, was that, all the stuff was narrowed down to the super important stuff, and I knew why it was super important, and, that would have been amazing. So, don't leave that overwhelm or that procrastination of making decisions to your kids. That can be such a big gift. So, and letting go can be part of your generosity to other people. Like, it's just all a mindset about, how you're looking at it.
Yeah.
You can bless other people with your things. And it doesn't have to be your family, because they're going to get other things that are yours, that they love and they want.
Yeah. Well, we would love if you, shared this episode with someone who, might be struggling with this topic, or share it with your kids as a starting point to, how you're going to start letting go of some stuff to make things easier for them. If there are any resources that we can help you with, our website, downsizingroadmap.com, has tons of different things available. We have a free guide to get you started. That's at downsizingroadmap.com/guide. Or if you're ready to move forward and just need some help and, specifically want to talk to us or one of our agents near you, that's at downsizingroadmap.com/help. And we would love to help you.
Yep. All right. We'll talk to you next time.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us on the Downsizing Roadmap podcast. If you found this episode helpful, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who might need a little downsizing inspiration. Have questions or ideas for future episodes? Reach out to us on our website, www.downsizingroadmap.com. Until next time, let's keep simplifying and moving forward.